So just before the video starts, I wanted to give a quick shout out to what is quite possibly the most apt sponsorship I've ever come across for Vivec. Oftentimes I'll decline, 99.9% of sponsorship deals I come across because I just don't think Raid Shadow Legends is very appropriate for the sort of content on this channel. But I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to these report videos, and that's why I thought these COZYSNUG sleep earbuds from LYTMI really are a match made in heaven for this channel and its viewers. If you're anything like me, you might struggle falling to sleep on your back with conventional earbuds in. I'd always wondered whether there were any designs that facilitated side sleeping without waking up with a perforated eardrum. Not only do these earbuds work wonders for side sleepers, they boast high quality audio, are super lightweight and soft with various different sizes of ear wings to pick and choose from, on top of having 21 hours of charge when using the charging case. So, now you can all quickly and smoothly fall asleep listening to me recount the usual litany of mind-bending, reality-shattering experiences that we all know and love. If you're interested, please check out the link in the description, and don't forget to use the discount code Vivec for 10% off your order, valid up until the 9th of December. Anyway, we'll crack on with the video now, but be sure to let me know what you thought of the earbuds if you do end up snatching yourself a pair, and thank you to LYTMI for reaching out, I really appreciate it. Sedona Sunshine, an LLAD trip report by MDon, posted to EARBUDS.org August 31st, 2013. Note: I had no recollection of time throughout this experience, so I'll just describe the night as I remember it. I had taken one blotter about a month before this and had a very nice experience, one that I thought was worth a trip report. Well, being in Sedona, one of the most spiritual places in the country, on top of taking a higher dose, gave me an experience I will never forget. Myself and 4 friends were on a backpacking trip in Sedona, and we arrived at the national park at about 5 PM after driving 40 minutes on a dirt road. We were anxious to trip while the sun was still up, so we rushed to our hike. After about 45 minutes of hiking, my friend T, remember, friend T is tripping, and I dropped 1.5 blotters each. We continued to find a good place to set up our tents. 30 minutes later, we've arrived at a perfect clearing with beautiful views of the red rocks and horizon for the sunset. I'm starting to feel spacey, and I start to get a little nervous. I haven't even become acclimated to our campsite yet, and I'm already starting to come up hard. Somehow, I set up my tent, and I look to my friend T. With an uncomfortable look on his face, he says, "I don't even know how you did that, I'm tripping balls." This was T's first time trying a psychedelic drug, and I was somewhat nervous for him and how he would handle it. Naturally, I start to worry a bit after seeing the look on his face. I decide to remove myself from the campsite that there is literally nothing to do at, so that I can enjoy my trip and come up in peace. I start to walk up this red rock hill looking for a place to meditate. There is no comfortable place to sit anywhere. I keep walking, thinking to myself, oh come on, you're tripping acid in Sedona. The universe is going to give you a perfect spot to sit. Sure enough, there is a single flat rock that looked comfortable to sit on, with 2 little flowers growing on each side of it. I shit you not. I sit down and start to focus on my breathing. Instantly, I'm in another world. My thoughts are so deep and complex that I completely separate from reality. I snap back, and I bring back a deep vibrating sound that continues around me. It was kind of a whoop, whoop, whoop sort of vibration. And I thought to myself, it's the earth. Sure enough, I hear a higher pitch vibration, and I knew instantly that it was mine. I open my eyes, and for the first time ever, I see patterns. It was beautiful. I'd read so much about psychedelics and about people's experiences that I thought I understood what it meant to see patterns. But nah, experiencing them for myself was surreal. I saw the flower of life creating a dome around me, along with fractals and many other geometric shapes. They didn't look solid, but almost holographic. The sky was purple, and the orange of the sunset was created by each colour of the spectrum, and I could see it all. In this moment, it felt like the weight of the universe was being pushed in on me all at once. It was very intense, and I actually couldn't move. I'm convinced that the chemical is only half of the reason I'm tripping my balls off right now. The other half is the landscape. Sedona is the most spiritual place in our country, with high electromagnetic energy, energy vortexes, and twisting juniper trees. This is so intense because this land is so high in energy, I'm convinced. I hear my friends M and T coming up the hill looking for me. They sound very worried. I called them over and the look on T's face hasn't changed much. He is able to laugh at things but would regain that nervous look quite often. The sun was going down, so we walked back to the campsite. Light is bouncing off of all the little plants on the ground, making everything look spiky, a bit like a cactus. When we get back to the campsite, we face the same problem again. An empty space with nothing to do in it. I begin to try and explain the experience I just had to my friend and find that I cannot. I'd get halfway through a sentence and my mind would be 10 steps ahead. It was rather frustrating. I look to T again and ask him what he's seeing. Dude, how are you even holding a conversation? I don't even know how you're doing it. I need to just go trip in the tent. I reckon I'll feel better in there, he said. I joined him. We sat in the tent and tried to gather our thoughts. My consciousness leaves my body twice. My head would just float into empty space. And when I would come back to reality, I literally had to check if I'd shit myself. Well, that's enough of that, I say to myself while I get out of the tent. At this point, I'm pretty sure I've taken too much. And I'm not going to have a good trip whatsoever. Because up until now, it was just so much to handle. I started to become anxious, so I grabbed a glow stick out of my pack. My friend B makes a toy out of it for me and starts to swing it around in circles very fast. B, you have no idea what you're actually creating right now, I said to him. At this point, I was not amused by the trails of the glow stick. I was amused by the patterns that were being created on the inside of the circle. It was a very vivid flower of life that became more complex when he would spin it fast and became simpler when he would spin it slowly. After T and I had enough of the trippy green light, we looked up at the sky. It was the clearest we have ever seen the Milky Way. At this moment, T and I both broke out of our intense come-ups and were peaking. All we just wanted to do right now was go back up on that hill and stare at the stars. The Milky Way was so clear to me that it looked as if someone had been holding a flashlight behind it and was even moving it around, which allowed me to see each section of it in great detail. We walked up the same hill I'd meditated on and started taking open exposure pictures of the stars. And after about an hour or so of talking about life, existence, materialism, perception, pretty much anything, I took the greatest picture of the stars. This sheer beauty helped me come to realize, with the help of M and T, the most beautiful life realization I could have come to. To top it off, there were 2 consecutive shooting stars. I started sobbing. I honestly couldn't help it. I'd never been so content, so sure, so happy, so amazed in my life, and for all of it to happen at once was honestly incredible. It was the single greatest moment of my life, and I genuinely couldn't believe it. It was as if my entire life had come full circle, and there was nothing else except that very moment. Unfortunately though, the realization will be kept between M and T and the ones closest to me, because it was far too life-changing and so very personal. After another hour of talking with M and T, we heard a disturbing noise come from towards the campsite. It honestly sounded like a dying animal. The sound recurred 3 more times, and we decided we should go make sure our 2 other friends were alright. We never found out what the sound was, but at this point, we were coming down after what felt to be about 6 hours of a trip. Before getting into our tents, T and I just stood there in silence, trying to piece together what happened those few hours. It was hard to think anymore. Our brains felt like a library with no books left to read. So, we get into our sleeping bags and pass out easily. Waking up the next morning was great. We watched the sunrise over the mountains, cleaned up the campsite. Feeling refreshed and in a clear state of mind, the trip was honestly everything we had hoped. We hiked out and took one last look back on the canyon that had changed our lives, and then headed back. It's been quite a while since I've covered AL Lad or Al Lad. I find it quite funny calling it Al Lad because where I'm from, up north in England, it's quite common to hear someone say our lad as a referral to your friend or your mate or some guy. No, it's our lad. So I like to call it Al Lad. Very amusing, I know.
Good joke. Everybody laugh.
So here's a bit of Psychonaut Wiki information for you. Great resource, even if there is some dodgy stuff behind the scenes that I don't want to get into now. But yeah, if you want to look that up, feel free. But regardless, just taking it within the context of information, it is very concise and comprehensive. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to keep this a a common thread throughout the commentaries now, if I cover a substance that maybe people don't know about. So yeah, here we go. 6-allyl 6-nor-lysergic acid diethylamide, also known as N-allyl-nor-lysergic acid NN diethylamide, N-allyl-nor-LSD, or commonly as AL-LAD, is a novel psychedelic substance of the lysergamide class. AL-LAD is chemically similar to LSD and has a similar mechanism of action, working primarily by binding to serotonin receptors in the brain. AL-LAD was first investigated in 1984 by Andrew J. Hoffman and David Nichols as part of a series of LSD analogues, which also included ETH-LAD and PRO-LAD. Yeah, pro-gamer me, lad, swear down. Its activity in humans was later documented by Alexander Shulgin in his book Tikal, Tryptamines I Have Known and Loved, in which it is described as one of several very potent compounds in a large series of NOR-LSD analogues. In 2013, AL-LAD appeared for sale on the research chemical market, where it has been commonly marketed alongside lysergamides such as 1-PLSD, ALD52, and ETH-LAD, or ETH-LAD, as a legal grey market alternative to LSD. User reports describe the effects of AL-LAD as similar to those of LSD, with some subtle differences. It is thought to either be equally or moderately less potent than LSD itself, with an active dose reported at between 75 and 150 micrograms. It is often described as being more visually oriented, but with a less introspective headspace. It also has a moderately shorter duration, and is generally considered to be a less anxiety-provoking and challenging version of LSD. Very little data exists about the pharmacological properties, metabolism, and toxicity of AL-LAD. While it is often characterized by users as being generally more recreational and non-threatening compared to LSD, it is highly advised to approach this highly potent hallucinogenic substance with the proper amount of precaution and harm reduction practices if using it. Whoa, did that all in one breath. So I've never taken AL-LAD or Aladdin before, but if I was to dabble in the old LSD verse again, I would probably prioritize trying one of these analogues. I've done LSD so many times, I've had so many wacky, mystical out-of-body experiences and stuff I can't even begin to describe, that over time, having not done it as much anymore, there's a little level of ambivalence for going in, because I get, when you open Pandora's box and you go down the rabbit hole, as beautiful as it is expanding the mind and going beyond the human and exploring consciousness, when the ego starts to solidify again and you ground yourself back in the human reality, at least for me, I find that there is a little bit of anxiety when you go back to one of these substances that produce such a, well, reality-shattering effect for you on numerous occasions. Even though you know it's all love, it's all beauty, and etc., there's still, that level of tension between you and the substance, because you know what it can do now. You know that there are no boundaries to the psychedelic experience. Before I took psychedelics, when I was younger, I was just excited to try something new, and I liked trippy stuff, and I just started smoking weed, and I had a desire to just have new experiences, and there was no real understanding of what psychedelics were, so the lack of knowledge sort of meant there was no fear. But now, when you open Pandora's box and you see what's inside it, as much hope and love as the box can be filled with, it can also be filled with some distressing universal truths that maybe you're not ready to experience again. And sometimes that's going on in your psyche for a reason. And for me, it's because I need to just cement myself back into the survival level human experience and work up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and just generally live the human life that I obviously want to live. And sometimes psychedelics can get in the way of that. If abused or just used consistently, it can really unground you, as we've talked about this, even in the last report, was it, where he took them dissociatives, that dissociative 4-MeO-PCP, and he found that, you can, or it might have been, it's one of these trip reports I've covered in the past few days, where coming back to the human world brought in this level of conflict with the human experience, and detaching yourself from that too much is going to cause probably a lot of unnecessary suffering, really, because at the end of the day, you're going to come back to the human, no matter how mystical of an experience, how transcendent of a time that the hallucinogenic treated you to. You're still going to come back at the end of the day. So you need to find the balance in your life. Don't get too sucked into the human, because fucking hell, humans are full of bullshit for the most part. But yeah, also don't get too sucked into the psychedelic, because you are going to come back. Life is all about balance. Another thing, I actually recorded this before, and then for some reason Audacity deleted it. But for some reason I started talking about aliens. Oh yeah, I was talking about just the state of the world at the minute. I feel like there's a lot of anxiety in the world right now with everything going on regarding global conflict. The pendulum swinging back to the other end of the political spectrum. I mean, it always swings back and forth, and it's all relative. But yeah, there's a lot of extremities going on throughout earthly societies, and I don't know why I started mentioning that in the last recording. Somehow I tied it into AL Lad, but I've completely lost it. But oh well, let's just go on a little tangent. It's always interesting to talk about this. I mean, we're psychonauts. We care about what's going on in the world. We're interested in human affairs and universal truths, and just generally as a psychonaut, you should. Well, you don't have to be, but I feel like it's a common thread between psychonauts. We're interested in all parts of life. At least I am. I like politics. I like science. I like art. I like. Well, I just love it all. To be fair, life is such a rich, detailed, complex thing. It's a beautiful thing they do, and it's fascinating, all the areas of life now, they interweave and complement each other. And yeah, right now the world is in a state of possibly the deepest imbalance it's been since, well, I guess we've always been imbalanced, but since probably the Cold War. It feels like the Cold War never really ended in a sense. But yeah, what I was going to say was, I don't know if you noticed, on the news there's been these drones spotted at military bases in the UK that supposedly have a nuclear arsenal in them. This is just a rumour, but there's been these drones that are not your typical drones that you usually see, and possibly not even man-made drones. They look like UFOs. And then there was a UAP spotted, the classic spherical object spotted at Manchester Airport of all places, which is bizarre, and it did not look like a drone. Either the Chinese or whoever have reverse engineered crashed UFOs, or they have some super insane gravity defying technology, or gravity propulsion technology. I don't know. Whatever's going on with the UFOs and how they maneuver around, it's definitely bending space-time in some way that we can't understand. We might have reverse engineered it. Maybe it's us flying about. Who knows? Who honestly knows? I don't know anything. Genuinely, I genuinely don't know anything at all. Maybe that's how I tie it back in psychedelics. Psychedelics will teach you that you don't really know anything. And there's a beauty in not knowing. There's a beauty in sort of it's like almost positive nihilism in the lack of meaning and the lack of understanding that you can really come to. I mean, you can come to great understanding, but there's always more understanding to be had, which in a sense means there's no understanding. What am I even on about? Basically, psychedelics are a great way to teach, to sort of kick you into gear if you need it, but they shouldn't be abused, because you don't want to be losing yourself in them, because this is how you end up like Conor Murphy and all these crazy people who abuse psychedelics, and they develop like this very depraved sort of god complex, and yeah, it detaches you from the beauty of being a human. I know I say humans are full of bullshit, but we can also be full of love. But yeah, strange times in the world right now. Wouldn't be surprised if the psychedelic revolution speeds up again, especially in times of distress. Look at in the 60s, all the stuff that was going on there with Vietnam War and the racial tensions and everything. And oftentimes the counterculture presents human consciousness with a reawakened desire to go beyond the human and experience universal love and connection and etc. And oftentimes tension in the world will result in a desire to go beyond. Maybe that's why there's all these UAPs and UFOs and the talks of it coming out of disclosure, and everyone's interested in psychedelics again. It's because realistically we need to go back inward and stop externalizing all the evil, because this is a problem I say with humans, is we're always externalizing the problem when the real problem is what's staring you back in the mirror. You need to sort out the devil in you before you try to sort out the devil in others, and realistically the devil in others needs to sort it out in themselves. So it's a losing battle, really. This is why, even though I'm a very like politically interested person and probably like quite progressive, I don't really take it like seriously at all. Well, I do take it seriously, but I don't get too lost in it. I see the fun in it, and I like to just analyze human behavior and not get too entrenched in it. I used to be a bleeding heart liberal, but definitely not anymore. Even though I'm a progressive person deep down, I see the toxicity in the progressive culture of today. Fucking load of bollocks, to be honest. But wow, I can't believe I went on a political tangent in an AL Lab Trip Report video, but that's the sort of stuff you get on Vivec, I guess. Anyway, thank you for listening, watching, whatever you do, and I'll see you on the other side.